I want to say something carefully because this moment doesn't need slogans or false certainty. I'm not in Iran. I'm not living under this. And I can't pretend to know what it feels like to watch hope rise and then be crushed by force. What I can do is try and understand what is happening and speak about it honestly, without dressing it up or looking away. What we're seeing now in Iran is not simply a government losing popularity. It's a system that has lost consent of the people, but does not rely on consent to survive, and the distinction matters. The ruling elite in Iran are not confused about who they are or what they believe. Their worldview is internally coherent. It is built on an idea that legitimacy flows from God, not from the population. The obedience is owed upwards, not outwards. That resistance itself is corruption. It propagates this ideology through its proxies and the promise of heavenly reward for a future in the face of imperialism. Taken on its own terms, in a vacuum, that logic holds together syllogistically. It is coherent syllogistically. Coherent only within its own ideological loop. Yet in human terms, it's entered an abyss. What we're dealing with is not just authoritarianism, but something deeper, more dangerous. It is an eschatological form of rule. Eschatology being the belief that history is in itself some sacred struggle with a predetermined ending, and that present suffering is not a failure of government, but a test of faith. In this worldview, pain is not something to be prevented. It is something to be endured, even welcome, if it serves that divine purpose. The deepest wrong here is not simply repression. It is imposition without consent. Iranian society was never asked whether it wanted to live inside a religious vision that threatens suffering as a test of faith rather than social failure. Whether it wanted its children raised, its bodies governed, and its future sacrificed in service of a sacred mission that it did not choose. The regime assumes an entitlement so vast that it claims the right to decide not only how people should live, but what their suffering means. It's not government, it's possession. And with this act of possession, the regime assumes an entitlement so vast that it claims the right to define meaning, morality, and destiny for everyone beneath it. And when the people resist, not with weapons, but with their own dignity, the response is not persuasion, it's punishment. This is why legitimacy matters, even when force seems to win, because the people of Iran are the ones who feed the country, heal the wounded, run the businesses, keep the lights on, teach the children. The elite in Iran do not create society. They do not. They hold it hostage. And the hostage situation can last a long time. Fear can substitute for consent longer than anyone wants to admit it. And there can be no clean ending, no moment of triumph, no outside rescue. And that's the bit that's hardest to say. It's said out of respect and not despair. What cannot be taken away, even by violence, is that the truth that the regime's moral claim is broken. Not only because outsiders like me say so, but because the people living under it know it in their bones. If this moment leaves scars that last generations, that is not a failure of the people. It is the cost imposed by a system that chose power over humanity. And if nothing else, it should be said clearly and without apology, the people of Iran did not consent to this. They are not lesser for rejecting it, and no amount of force can make an imposed destiny just. Despite the horror of the regime's brutal history, people have risen up, knowing full well the danger that they face. They did not do so out of recklessness, but instead through clarity about what it means to live with dignity, without voice and without the right to shape one's own life. Those who have fallen are not symbols or sacrifices of someone else's cause. There are brothers and sisters who asked for freedom and were met with coercive violence instead. To those who ordered or enabled this harm, understand this: fear can compel compliance, but it cannot command respect, and it ensures that betrayal will be remembered long after the power fades. And to those who stood and those who are still standing, your courage is recognized, and your humanity is undeniable. Now that freedom has been tasted openly, not in whispers or in hiding, but together, in full view, it exists as a lived reality and not an abstract promise. That experience cannot be confiscated. Having known it, people cannot return to what they were. They can only move forward. Even now, while outcomes remain uncertain and the ground still looks dark, something irreversible has already happened. A spirit has awakened inside Iran, shared and recognized, and it passes quietly from person to person. It reaches not only those who stand unarmed, but those who are ordered to raise their weapons against them. And that spirit, and when that spirit reaches the ones that hold the guns, then the revolution will be complete.